I'd like to introduce quite a different person, Dr. Peter Fenwick, who is the senior lecturer at the Institute of Psychiatry here in London. He is also the consultant neuropsychiatrist at John Radcliffe Infirmary in Oxford and honorary consultant in neurophysiology to Broadmoor Special Hospital. He has published numerous scientific papers on brain function and also several papers on meditation and altered state of consciousness. His most recent book is The Truth in the Light. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Peter Fenwick.
Hi there. Nice to be with you.
Welcome, Peter. So for some time, Peter, you've been working with other scientists and doctors exploring the mind, the power of the mind and different states of consciousness. Have you come to any conclusions?
There are lots of conclusions. For now, it's a very exciting time. I think one of the most exciting times. In the 1990s, it was designated the Decade of the Brain by the National Institute of Health in Washington. They've poured a lot of money into brain research. This has also coincided with the development of a lot of machines, a number of machines, which can actually track the brain in action. One of these is called the functional MRI. Now, this is a very important machine because it will let us know what is going on in different brain areas. So if you're happy, you can see a little area which lights up in one part of the brain. If you're sad, in another. If you recall the picture of the dog, that's another area. Its name comes from a different side. So we're beginning to understand exactly how the brain works. So yes, very exciting.
Right, and I know that you met, in fact I was there at one of the occasions, Uri and Daddy earlier, and you've been working with them doing some experiments. Have you been using some of these machines, or have you been using other? I know it was a very scientific experiment that you did with them.
We've been using an old technology, but it's not that old. And we've been looking at the brains of Uri and Daddy now, or looking at their function.
Still in their head.
I was very excited when I was asked to come along and look at, or possibly produce some experiments which could look at how Daddy's brain functions and Yuri's brain function, how they may function together. And the reason for this is that I have an interest in meditation and have done a number of scientific studies over about 10, 15 years. I'm also interested in altered states of consciousness. So if you were given this opportunity, what would you say? Say, yeah, go for it.
Uri Geller and Dadi Janki, yeah.
So I did, but I told some of my friends I might work with Uri Geller. They said, no way. I said, he's a nice guy. I said, yeah, we know that. But the ones who had worked with him said, don't work with him. But I'd quite like to. They said, he'll ruin your equipment. No way, I said. No way, not my equipment, it's good. And so we set about two sets of experiments. The first set was using the idea of healers and healees. Now, if you're a healer and you have electrodes put on your head and measure your brain waves, and there's somebody who's being healed, a healee, and as they pass their hands over the healee, and you measure the healee's brain waves, then there are a number of studies which show that at the moment of this transaction, the brain waves of the healer and the healee are brought into some form of synchrony. So if Dadi Janki and Uri Geller came into some sort of emotional contact, could we see a synchrony of their brain waves? So that's the first experiment. And when you look at the results of this, we're going to look at the frequency profile on the left and right hemisphere of Daddy's brain and the frequency profile on the left and right hemisphere.
We've got the videos on behind of some of the experiments to show you all. In fact, what did happen when we visited Daddy at the Oxford Retreat Centre of the Brahma Kumaris. What's happening here?
They're putting the electrodes on and they're making good contact with the skull. Sorry, with the scalp.
Yeah. Not going all the way through,
there shouldn't be a contact with the skull. And they're being stuck on. And this is the first day that we went there when we were going to do these two experiments. The second experiment was to see if you could transfer beeps or brain activity from one person to the other. Now, the equipment's being connected. This is our first day. We're looking forward to doing this experiment. We put it on, put the earphones on, and not a thing works. Not a thing.
Hours we were there.
Goodness knows why. Everybody said that it was Yuri. What it was, I don't know. It didn't work. So we had to pack up, go away, and come back and do it again. So this is the second time when we came back. Yuri, was it you?
Yuri said the machines always go strange when he's around.
Here you can see the electrodes being put on Dadi Janki and on Yuri. We're going to do this first experiment. Can the minds come into contact with each other? And we'll see that from the pattern of the brain waves. Now, if you look at the screens, you can see that's Dadi's left hemisphere, right hemisphere. And now you get the frequencies, the high frequencies and the lower frequencies going down, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And Yuri's picture is on the right there. You can see that they aren't, in fact, synchronous altogether. Now they had an emotional transference. They related to each other in silence, linking of the minds. And then we looked at the patterns which were produced. And if you do that, you'll see that, to begin with, they were rather dissimilar. So the experiment went through an intense linking over a period of time. Now, if you look at that pattern, Yuri's, remember, on the right, Dadi's on the left. You can see that Dadi's two hemispheres are more similar than Yuri's two hemispheres, and that's what you find in people who meditate. But the patterns between the two of them are really quite different. And so we took samples from the middle of the recording, and now you can see something quite different. If you look at Dadi's picture, you can see that the two hemispheres are very similar, and note the power, the fast power and the slow power. It's exactly what's reported in meditative states. And see Yuri's beginning to be dragged in to a similar pattern to Dadi's. Now at the end of the experiment, you see a lot of slow power there with a very similar pattern from both of them. So one has to argue that the literature is correct, and that is that when people come into strong emotional contact, there is to some extent a similarity. Those machines were lent to us by Jeffrey Blundell, and they're called mind mirrors. And if any of you are interested in it, the Brahma Kumari will tell you where to get it. Get them. Now, the next experiment was to see if you could you could exchange the information by telepathy. This was done by Jacobo Grinberg in Mexico. Dadi is receiving beeps. Yuri has a set of headphones on which mask any sound, so Yuri's not getting anything, but Dadi is receiving beeps. Beep, beep, beep. Now, Yuri is trying to pick up these beeps by telepathy. And the studies which have been done suggest that if people are in emotional context, you can. Now, if you look at the screen, you can see when the beep occurs. 3 seconds across the whole screen, so 1.5 seconds before the beep, and then the beep. There are 100 trials, and they're summed together. The middle line is Dadi's trace, the bottom line is Yuri's trace. So at the time of the marker, you're looking at the sum of these 100 trials, and you can see a nice, what's called evoked response in Dadi's brain. Now, if you look at Yuri's brain, it should actually be quite straight. There should not be a response there. Now, you could argue that he was hearing them, but he says he wasn't, and with the muffling earphones on, I don't think he was. And the other thing about it, if you look carefully, you can see the response starts later. In other words, it's as if there has to be some effect in Dadi's brain before Yuri's able to pick this up telepathically. So the conclusion from this experiment is that it may be that in this situation, when you have two people in emotional contact like this, then there is a transference, a telepathic transference of brain activity between the two, and you can pick this up in the electrical activity of the brain. Now remember, these are fun experiments which we did, and in order to show this as positive proof, then you would have to do a lot of scientific controls to make sure it was done. You have to do it in different rooms. Now, this has been done in Mexico, and there was a suggestion, in fact, that people who are not in emotional contact, you don't get this transference. If they're put in emotional contact and not disturbed, then it occurs even in separate rooms. Daddy and Yuri seem to be able to do this without any difficulty, and you didn't break the machinery. So,
Peter, there was a time many years ago that actually I was asked by the CIA to do certain things for them, and the CIA wanted to make sure that what I do is real, and they actually had me in Los Angeles, and the head of the CIA, Casey, drew a drawing in Washington, and over the phone I had to duplicate it, and it worked. So there's no doubt in my mind that telepathy exists. We all have telepathy. I'm sure you experienced it many times in your life. You walk into a room, it looks too familiar, and you say, oh my goodness, this is deja vu. Or you've been in a place that you've never been before, and you say, hey, I've been here before. So we all experience this. So thank you for allowing us to participate in your experiment.
At any rate, it seemed to have worked.
You're happy with the results, are you?
Well, they're only preliminary results, but they look very exciting. So, if any of you have got 50k, £50,000, would like to let us have it, we'll do it properly for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter.
Right,
Dr. Peter
thank
Fenwick. Well, Uri and Daddy have met several times when they haven't been doing experiments in the past few months, and I think they'd both agree it was a very intense and wonderful experience. When you met, you experimented with the exchange of energy, of peace and love, and have experienced that there is an awakening of the inner being and something magical really can happen. Shall we ask the audience to join us now to show exactly what happens when Uri and Daddy connect in this way? If you watch the screens up there, you'll be able to participate in what we are going to have done.
And if I may ask you all, while we do this for a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes, just think positively, be optimistic, send love, and send peace out there, and connect with us. I'm sure you'll feel it.
Let's join them. share that experience with us? If you can.
I think she could bend spoons better than I can. Well, it's just wow. I mean, first of all, not to hear a sound amongst 4,000 people is incredible, and I think there are really no words, Lynn. I just feel love, peace, power, and I really feel that we all are connected almost to the whole world and the universe. Those were the thoughts and feelings that were going through me while I was connecting to Daddy and to the Creator.
And Daddy, can you explain to Uri and to us, for you, what was happening?
जब यूरी को देखती हूँ, मैं नहीं देखती हूँ.
When I see Yuri, it's not me seeing you.
ये एक आत्मा बहुत साफ, सच्ची है.
It's a soul that's very clean
अंदर से गुप्त है.
and true.
ईश्वर को जानता नहीं.